Hi folks, Jason Hoover, digitalmoneyball.com. I'd like to talk to you today about ChatGPT, or Google's Bard, or the many other generative AIs, these large language models as they're called, which have emerged over the past 6 months. ChatGPT just tends to be the Kleenex of these tools. But in particular, I'd like to talk to you today about their impacts on your sales and marketing. And I must admit, right off the bat, I'm a bit puzzled. I'm befuddled, actually. I simply can't understand how, despite all of the external buzz and media attention, why so few businesses have an adequate focus on ChatGPT. It's like maybe a minor ingredient, if anything, in the conversation today. In a recent May survey, we found that less than 1 in 10 business leaders had ever actually used ChatGPT. And next to zero have any programs in place or strategies in place for adapting operations. And that's a big problem. If you're not using these tools, you just haven't had that oh my goodness moment to realize just how powerful they are and how impactful they can be to your business. Let me tell you something. ChatGPT is a monumental advance. Somebody flipped the light switch on in November of last year, and businesses who can adopt this technology can become orders of magnitude more productive. I'm not saying that hyperbolically. Here's an example. Imagine 6 months ago we sat down and I told you that easily, with the smallest little investment, using a free tool, every one of your employees could become hyper-productive and hyper-capable. Writing a novel was probably outside the wheelhouse of most of your employees 6 months ago. Few, if any, had the ability or the capacity, the bandwidth. Today, using ChatGPT, every one of your employees has the capability to write a 100,000-word novel in like a day. Every one of them. You, your admin, your directors, the janitor, every one of your employees. And not only are these people authors, they're also computer programmers. They now possess the skills to program computers. They're also physicists. They can solve complex physics problems. Tomorrow they can pass their medical boards. The next day they could ace their LSATs. And the day after that they can probably pass the bar exam. This range of capabilities is not an exaggeration, and it's simply astounding. Considering that every employee has now been bestowed with these veritable superpowers, isn't it logical to assume that their capabilities within your business have also undergone a significant transformation? And with this degree of capability, might it also be clear that those who fail to adopt these technologies will swiftly fall behind? And if I might, if you go just a few more steps down the rabbit hole and you realize the capabilities that people now have, might it be logical to assume that the playbooks and the processes and the tools and the methods, those that you employed just 6 months earlier, might now be obsolete because your workforce has a vastly different skill set? These are veritable superpowers, and while Jimmy Olsen needed a ladder, Superman didn't. And why hop in a fast car when you're already faster than a speeding bullet? That's the difference today. Today, I'm going to ask you to think of your sales and marketing operations as a machine. And just like a machine, these operations bring together various components, such as people, processes, tools, to convert inputs, like capital, operating expenses, SG&A, sales, general, administrative costs, into outputs, like new customers. However, like other machines, sometimes the parts change. Sometimes the parts undergo significant advances. And sometimes even the inputs and outputs change. And all of these things could lead to a radical redesign of the overall machine. A horse or a buggy did no good attached to a Ford Model T. And even a powerful internal combustion engine today has no place in a modern Tesla. Leaders need to comprehend the transformative impacts of these tools and recognize the need for fundamental changes. In general, when a machine's components undergo a radical transformation, you need to reimagine and redesign the machine. So now I just want to show you an example. I want to show you ChatGPT in action, some of the efficiencies and innovative capabilities it has. This example is merely the tip of the iceberg, but I just want you to see this. One example of many of some of the productivity that salespeople can realize using ChatGPT, enabling them to do things not only faster or better than they ever have, but enabling to do things that they probably aren't doing already, things that they need to be doing. You know, in the digital age, it's just critical that your salespeople are out producing new accounts for your business, gaining new customers, driving new conversations with customers in the market. Too many salespeople, for various reasons, have fallen into the trap of just not doing that. And while B2B sales of yesteryear would literally knock on doors or dial a phone, they were rotary at the time, most B2B salespeople today just don't prospect. Jeb Blunt, the author and guru and wrote Fanatical Prospecting, said the top salespeople could prospect 80% of their time. Are your people even close to that? That's the fundamental here. Well, it's one of the fundamentals. The fundamental is not ChatGPT. It's what ChatGPT enables you to do that you otherwise couldn't do, or that you would do far less efficiently. Let's say I were to tell you that I am going to start from scratch with nothing. And in a matter of less than 10 minutes, I am going to create several variants of some initial prospecting emails. I'm going to customize those emails towards either specific industries or personas or even individuals. And then I'm going to automate the creation of let's say, a few dozen emails from a central lead list. You know, the game changed there as well. Everybody's information is public today, and good lead lists are relatively cheap. You don't have to go out and produce your own leads through pull marketing or automation. Most B2B businesses don't operate in the mass markets of B2C, which have millions of customers. They normally operate in what we call target markets with thousands, hundreds of customers, which is a very manageable list for a push style of sales and marketing. Please don't let B2C thinking corrupt your B2B sales and marketing, as it so often does these days in many ways. Anyways, here we go. Let's start the clock. Let's work backwards for 10 minutes, and let's see what I can get done using ChatGPT in 10 minutes. You know, I spent nearly 20 years of my career with a wonderful company called Siemens, and to illustrate what we can do with a company that has a strong internet presence and profile, let's start by just drafting a prospecting email without any basis whatsoever and see how it does right off the bat. Talking about Siemens. Now, this is far too general for any practical purpose, but it just shows you the speed that ChatGPT can work at, and how that even without a whole lot of prompting. Let's say that we're selling a particular product within Siemens. Let's say we're selling perfect harmony variable frequency drives, which is pretty much a big piece of electrical equipment that controls pumps and fans and compressors and things like that. So just scouring the internet, we find a lot of very useful information, and one of the points that it gave us was something called harmonics. Now, I'm not saying that the best way to sell this product is by talking about this thing called harmonics. This is just one example of how ChatGPT can dig into a particular product, into a particular aspect of the value proposition, and how it knows a lot about it. Now, let's take that information and let's write a specific prospecting email about this one product, focusing on this one value proposition, which is harmonics mitigation. Again, you can pick 1, 2, or 3. You can scour the internet, or you can build as you're going to see. You can take a piece of collateral that you might have already. You can input that into ChatGPT, and it can formulate this prospecting email from that. Now, we could target plant managers or purchasing managers or maintenance managers. There's a lot of different types of personas. Let's say that we had defined a plant manager persona, or let's say that we didn't define it. Let's have ChatGPT define it for us. And what we're asking ChatGPT to do is take that email and match it up with what might be relevant to a plant manager in industry today. Alternatively, you can give it maybe 3, 4, 5 characteristics of a plant manager persona that you developed and align it there. Let's say that we want to align it with a specific customer. That's interesting, isn't it? So the same way it scoured the internet and was really smart about our company and our product, it could also be equally smart about other big companies out there. And now we're trying to draft a prospecting email that's matched perfectly to a specific customer and what they're driving at. And it's, you have to admit, it's not perfect, but it's done a pretty good job. If we're not satisfied, various tones, we can shorten it up, we can play with it. Now I'm asking it to write it in the tone of Arnold Schwarzenegger. How about that? And actually, although certainly Arnold Schwarzenegger is not the perfect tone for an exercise like this, there are other personas that you might select, either real or fictitious, that really strike the right tone for your types of emails. Anyways, let's go to my own company, Digital Moneyball, and let's take this asset that you might have seen that talks about this topic we're talking about right now. And all I'm doing is copying the introduction and the conclusion of this asset. And I'm pasting a bunch of stuff with sloppy line pasting, a bunch of typos. Somebody would have challenges really making heads or tails out of this, but we're going to see what ChatGPT can do with just this introduction and conclusion, all of this gobbledygook, and let's see if it can come up with something that's a decent prospecting email. And it turns out it can. It turns out it's remarkably good at that. I can't tell you how many times I've made voice notes in my phone. I've done audio to text. It comes out with something that is just a jumbled mess of text. I put it into ChatGPT and I say, good luck with that, and somehow ChatGPT makes sense out of it. If you watch the show Mad Men, a company that Don Draper and others work for with Sterling Cooper, let's personalize this email at least somewhat at a high level for Sterling Cooper. So now I have the prospecting email derived very quickly from a brochure, personalized for a specific company. Now, let's say that I had a lead list in Excel. You can buy these pretty cheap. This is a really rudimentary list, first name, last name, company, email, role. Let's say that I wanted to send that email to everybody from, let's say, Sterling Cooper that I have in my lead list. So what I'm going to do now is ask ChatGPT to write some code for me. I'm going to ask it to develop a macro. I'm going to tell it the structure of my sheet, and I'm going to say, look, if they're in sales or marketing and they work for Sterling Cooper, I want an email for each of those people drafted with their email address in the to line, personalized for them by name. And now what ChatGPT is doing is it's giving me code to do exactly that. I have to admit, I actually sped up a couple sections and I slowed down other sections. You pretty much see this working real time now. And what I'm going to do with just a little bit of rudimentary upskilling, just so I know where to place that code, and you're going to see this if you don't know how to do macros. I'm just going to create a macro. I'm going to paste this code into my Excel sheet. I'm going to close it down, and then I'm just going to run it, and we'll see how it did. Now, often you'll do this with a test case, and we show firms how, and salespeople how to do this, but if you follow the show, you know a lot of these names, and you have an email now being drafted for each of those Sterling Cooper leads that we had in our purchase lead list. And again, that game has changed where everybody's information is public, and you can buy these leads pretty cheap. You don't have to produce your own leads necessarily through pool marketing. Most firms operate, B2B firms operate in target markets. There's a limited number of customers that comprise the bulk of the market. So this approach is very feasible. If I wanted to, I can go a few steps further. Instead of just sending an email, I can attach an asset. And you can imagine, as you go down this rabbit hole a little bit, that with just a little bit more time investment, we can not just customize an email, we can customize a PowerPoint file. We can print that to a PDF, and we can attach that customized asset to our customized email and send that, hopefully in a way that doesn't get our email trapped in a spam folder. Again, I'm going to copy this code in. I'm going to replace my current code in Excel. We'll execute the same macro in the same style, and there we have our emails coming up with the asset. So how did we do? In a little under 10 minutes, it seems like we've just done something that many salespeople would struggle to do in a day, 2 days, ever, for that matter. The degree of personalization, the degree of customization is going to be up to you, but it should be obvious right now the power that ChatGPT has to really accelerate sales prospecting. Salespeople can take personalization at this level. They can do it generically, and you can see having a few different variants of emails. You can see developing code to say, in this case, use this variant, in this case, use the other. You can see salespeople doing some prospecting online through things like LinkedIn Sales Navigator and actually developing information and personas for each individual and then customizing and inviting email. Hey, I loved your post on LinkedIn. I thought that I would send this to you. There's so many different uses once you have this sort of power and speed and efficiency. And it begs the question, what else can you do with ChatGPT knowing that this is just the tip of the iceberg? So let's step back. Let's think about the implications of what we just saw. First off, we've reduced the SG&A, the expenses for this activity, by like 99%. And this specific activity is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many things in the front end of the business that ChatGPT can help with. We talk about many of these things in our book. For sales, it's things like developing and editing emails or letters, doing customer research and lead mining, creating social media posts, customizing and personalizing assets, content, managing prospecting lists and pipelines, creating reports. For marketing, it's things like writing anything, content creation, whether it's writing copy, brochures, social media content, repurposing existing content for frequency of push marketing, persona development and other strategic marketing activities like competitor research or market research, sales enablement like creating email templates and scripts for prospecting, developing lead lists, enforcing brand guidelines. There's so many uses for ChatGPT in sales and marketing. Value stream mapping shows that theoretically ChatGPT could cut SG&A or OPEX by 50% or more. I'm not being hyperbolic here. Now, realizing that is another matter, but it's that big of an impact, or at least a potential impact. Think of what you can do with that power. You can repurpose people, you can put them to work on new innovative things, new customers, or you might optimize your organization, cut costs, perhaps to lower your price point. There's so much flexibility when you have that sort of power, and that's just two functions. When you consider its impacts across the enterprise, customer service, supply chain management, manufacturing, product development, the potential is astounding. Okay, here's the second thing. Prospecting is critical because producing scale is critical. You know, success in the digital age is not all about digital transformation. The digital age is winner take all, and we see this through consolidation forces and other factors that are dramatically reshaping B2B markets the same way that they've impacted pretty much every B2C market. You need your salespeople out hunting new customers, and most salespeople, for better or for worse, just don't do this anymore. If anything, this might be a spark for you to launch a broader program oriented around something like prospecting or new customer acquisition. Now, third, and this might be the most controversial because it's different, new, but with enough time and thought, business leaders tend to see this down the rabbit hole. The old playbooks are out, and the old playbooks in B2B, at least for advanced B2B companies, last generation's playbooks tended to use very centralized processes. What do I mean by that? You have large central efforts, central investments in things like marketing automation, largely using digital, that would farm, produce, nurture, etc. new leads and track them through these large, expensive CRM systems. Those leads then would go to your sales teams. Sometimes they'd act on them, sometimes they wouldn't. So the whole lead funnel, nurturing, etc. was very centralized, largely for the sake of applying technology, which needed to be centralized too. Now, this approach had inherent deficiencies, but 6 months ago, there was a good reason for this approach. It was able to produce scale through technology in a way that traditional salespeople with their cell phones and emails or knocking on doors just couldn't produce. And so you had to settle for those trade-offs 6 months ago. Now, what did you trade off? You traded off things like, look, that centralized approach wasn't really personal. It couldn't be. So you pretty much resorted to spamming a bunch of customers and hoping that you get a hit every once in a while. It's a low-odds game. And good luck getting sales to act on those leads sometimes. And then there's this thing called the Canned Spam Act, which requires certain triggers to be placed in those emails, which defaulted them to spam folders. Ironically, as an aside, Digital's put up fences to protect customers against the very forces it's created in the first place. Marketing automation is now defended by things like spam call notifications, which most of us don't answer anymore, or junk email, which most of us don't check. That's saturation in the digital age. Customers are just inundated with people, advertisers, vying for their time, And customer shields are up all the time now. You need to be able to break through that, break through those shields. Unfortunately, with the old methods, they were so impersonal that you just couldn't break through those shields. What I'm going to tell you is that this centralized method can now give way to decentralized methods, the same way that mainframe computing gave way to PCs, at least when the PCs became more powerful. These systems were now better optimized with decentralization. It's a phenomenon we see in many places, energy generation, etc. When the nodes become more powerful, the system decentralizes because it's superior. And the point is that ChatGPT now makes your salespeople orders of magnitude more powerful. And they're closer to your customers. They're 1 or 2 nodes closer than your technology, that technology that spams customers. And what they can do now that your technology couldn't is take a lot of great things from that automation and technology side and the impacts from the centralized methods, and they can combine it with the old stuff that really made a difference in the past, like personalization and a human touch. Today, you're capable of putting together the best of the old and the best of the new in a decentralized push sort of playbook. The game's changed, and by doing that, you can stand out. Your emails won't go to junk. Actually have a chance of being open. Your salespeople have a chance of engaging new customers. Sales can warm connections and not go in cold because they have the capability not to just swing blindly, hoping for a hit. They have the capability to manufacture hits. That's the art in sales that's so often forgotten. Their batting averages go way up. You get a bunch of Ted Williams, Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn's on your team. Everybody's batting 400. That's the game changer. And it goes well beyond just adopting ChatGPT. It's not just a matter of using ChatGPT. You need to reimagine the machine. You need to redesign the machine for its new, much more powerful parts. Hope that makes sense. Last point. How does your sales become more powerful? It's not only ChatGPT. You know the guy in the office that sits in the corner and he's just a whiz with Excel, or the gal that everyone asks for advice on PowerPoint to pretty up their presentations? Imagine if every employee could fully utilize Excel, PowerPoint, Word, even to the extent of writing their own code. You know, Microsoft Office is incredibly powerful software, incredibly powerful, and most people just scratch the surface of its capabilities. ChatGPT acts as an amplifier, and it multiplies people's ability to use software. And it actually multiplies the capabilities of the software by stitching them together. In other words, for example, you can use Excel to populate content in PowerPoint. A list of customers now becomes, say, personalized assets. ChatGPT can even allow inexperienced users to use that software to do things. Personalizing assets, engaging prospects, managing lists, so much more, much like expert software users. These capabilities often exceed that of expensive specialized software. And it's a brand new mindset for digital tools as well. We hope that you check out our new book. It's called ChatGPT Strategies for B2B Transformation. And we take you down this rabbit hole. And we talk about the considerations for ChatGPT and the enormous potential, especially in sales and marketing. And we talk about this decentralized machine and how it can vault you beyond the competition in B2B. But in addition, we provide some meta-level playbooks for actually making this vision real. And while I talk a lot about machines, there's a really important people element to adoption and adaptation. It actually might be the most critical element that business leaders are going to have to contend with as they adapt to this new paradigm. And it is a new paradigm. Here's a few final recommendations. First, don't underestimate the amount of transformational change that's possible or required and that you're going to have to navigate in your business, not just to adopt these new technologies, but to adapt your business to them, to a very different era. Second, don't look to the person next to you. Traditional businesses are going to lag in adoption. Playbooks and strategies are going to struggle to keep up, and forward-thinking businesses are going to need to independently navigate how to adopt these technologies. Don't look to the big consultants. The playbooks they wrote last year are now obsolete, and they're going to struggle to acknowledge the obsolescence of those playbooks and adopt a new mindset of innovative thinking. And if you're still skeptical of what I'm saying, if you're incredulous, here's the secret that nobody might be talking about today. Maybe the reason you're not hearing about using these in your business is that nobody has anything to sell you. ChatGPT is free. It's no charge. It's going to stay that way. People like Elon Musk have stated publicly that these AI tools are just too powerful to only be harnessed by the wealthy, and he's right. Now, ChatGPT actually displaces many things that powerful companies are selling you today, like the Salesforce.coms of the world, or the book that McKinsey wrote last year on digital transformation, which should now be in the trash can. Keep an open mind around this and realize there might be a reason that things are moving slowly. And for that matter, don't trust me. Maybe the third thing and the most important thing that I'll tell you as a recommendation is use ChatGPT. See for yourself. Leaders need to actually use ChatGPT, get their hands dirty, see the transformation, see the potential that sits at your feet. All it takes is logging in, getting a login, which is free. As a wise man might have said,
do it! Do it!
Markets with big changes and big disruptions always present the best opportunities, at least for smart, bold firms to get ahead of the pack. So I hope this video has helped build your awareness and frame your thinking around these new tools and what they mean for your business, and most importantly, how you can get a few steps ahead of the competition. Best of luck to you, and we'll see you next time.